coordinate geometry till this level, till where we are studying right now, will consist of linear equations, right? Linear equations. And what are linear equations? Linear equations are basically one line. So if there is a line made for you, this is a linear. This line will have a linear equation, which means that this line would have a name with respect to a linear equation. I'll show you one example, after which you'll get a better understanding of this. So for example, you're given an equation y equals to 2x plus 5. So y equals to 2x plus 5. Over here, if you notice, x has power 1. Obviously that 1 is invisible, because of which you cannot see it, but x has a power of 1, right? So whenever x has a power of 1, this means that the line will be linear. If, for example, you have an equation y equals to 2x squared plus 3x plus 4, this means that x has a power of 2, because of which this would be a quadratic equation. So this is linear equation, this is quadratic equation. Quadratic equation basically means that the graph will cut the x-axis on 2 points, maximum and minimum. We'll do it later on. That is for quadratic equation chapter. We'll do that after a while. But for now, all you got to know is that x squares equation will be a quadratic equation. We're not dealing with quadratic equations currently right now. We're dealing with linear equations. Okay, so let's get on to linear equations. I will give you some equations so that we can have a better understanding of what we're doing. So for example, you have a question, y equals to same question. Let's take the same question, 2x plus 5, right? So now 2x plus 5, before going into the graph or before plotting the graph, how it's supposed to be, let's look at some things. As we discussed in the explanation, as we discussed in the intro, that y equals to mx plus c is the generic form of linear equations, or the generic name of a linear equation. Over here, what does this tell you, or what does this signify? This signifies that this m is to m being the gradient over here, so this is 2 over here. Then c being 5, c is the y-intercept, so m is the slope or gradient, c is the y-intercept. Y-intercept being from where on the y-axis does this line cut, or where is this line cutting the y-axis. So let's try to do this question specifically. So first things first, we'll make a graph. Let's make a graph like this. Whoever is not clear with the graphs, they need to see the intro video of graphs. They need to know about the graphs, how does graph work. If somebody does not have an idea about this, this is a prerequisite to go into coordinate geometry, so you do need to know about this. So without further ado, let's move. So now this is 0. I know that c is 5 according to the equation that is given to us, right? So c is 5, because of which I know that the line will be cutting the y-intercept over here on this point, and gradient is 2. So now what we'll do is we'll make a small table. This table will help us in figuring out our graph. On the table we'll take some, so these are x values, these are y values, we'll take some negative values, we'll take some positive values. Let's start with -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2 and 3. right? So these are 7 points. We'll take 7 points, and with the help of these 7 points, it will be easier for us to make the line. So if I put -3 instead of x, I'll get -6. 3 times -3 times 2 is -6, and -6 plus 5 gives me -1. If I put -2, then -2 times 2 gives me -4. -4 plus 5 gives me 1. If I put -1, it gives me -2. -2 plus 5 gives me 3. If I put 0, it gives me 5. If I put 1, it gives me 7. If I put 2, it gives me 9. If I put 3, it gives me 11. So we won't go till 11, we'll just make it till 7 or 9, let's say. So now this is our table. With the help of this table, we will now be making lines. Or we'll now be making the linear line for this equation. So let's see. -3 is x and y is -1. So my one point is over here. -2 is x and y is 1. My second point is here. -1 is x and 3 is y. Okay, so -2 is x, 1 is y, -1 is x, 3 is y, and 0 is x and 5 is y. So now I think you understand better that what is happening over here. I'll put a 9 over here as well, just for clarification purposes. 1 is x and 7 is y. 2 is x and 9 is y. So it comes over here, I suppose. Correct. So for 11, then it'll go a bit up. So let's make a line with this. So if we want to make a line, it will be somewhat like this. If you see, the line is coming exactly like this. So this will be our linear equation, and as you had already figured out that the gradient was +2, your m was +2, because of which this line is an upward sloping curve, right? So your upward sloping curve is y equals to 2x plus 5, and this is how we make a line. So we can write over here y equals to 2x plus 5. This is your line, very simply put. I hope this makes sense. If there are any questions, obviously, as always, you can ask us in the comments, you can ask us in the Q&A section, and we'll be more than happy to answer all of them. Any confusions that you might have, right? Let's try something a bit more complicated over here. So a lot of times, this was an easy question, right? So this was very basic, that all right, you are given y equals to 2x plus 5 or y equals to something. At times, a lot of my students, they get confused with one more possibility of a question. So for example, 3y equals to 6x minus 9, or plus 9 and minus 6x. So this would be a bit more tricky. So let's play with this a bit. So before going into this, before getting all confused with what will we do with 1 over 3, what will we do with 3y, and now y has a value, so how will we put it in the table and all that, you do not have to get confused and you do not have to get scared. Remember, as I told you in the last lecture, if you are scared of math, math will scare you more, like Emily Rose. If you are not scared of math, if you make math fun, then it will be fun for you, right? So let's deal with this. First things first, what you do is 3 is being multiplied with y over here. You will separate y. You need to separate y. Remember, this is not your gradient yet. Minus 6 is not your gradient yet. Why is minus 6 not your gradient yet? Because 3 still has a value. So 3 has a value. First, we need to isolate y. First things first. So in order to isolate y, what we'll do, 3 is being multiplied with y over here. When we isolate y, 6x plus minus 6x plus 9 over 3. All of this equation will be divided with 3. When it is divided by 3, now what happens? Denominator is the same. You can separately solve the numerators. So y equals to minus 6 over 3 plus 9 over 3. So 1s are, 2s are, 1s are, 3s are. Now your equation is y equals to minus 2x plus 3. This is your equation where your gradient is minus 2 and c or y-intercept is 3. So I will do this question as well, but I will be giving you other questions just so that you can have your practice as well, right? So if we solve this question, exactly the same thing we have to do over here as well. This is our y, this is our x. Let's make a table. So these are values of x, these are y. If I start taking them from minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2 and 3, right? Ironic how it comes exactly on the same number, but good, why not? So now we'll keep minus 3 instead of x. So minus minus gives me plus. Plus 3, minus 3 times minus 2 gives me plus 6. Plus 6 plus 3 gives me 9. So y will be 9 over here. I will have to increase this a bit. This will go up till here. Anyways. So minus 2, minus 2, minus 2 gives me 4. 4 plus 3 gives me 7. Minus 2, minus 1 gives me 2. 2 plus 3 gives me 5. 0 gives me 3. 1 gives me 1. Because 1 times minus 2 gives me minus 2. Minus 2 plus 3 gives me 1. And 2 gives me minus 1. And 3 gives me minus 3. So 3 and minus 6. Minus 6 plus 3 gives me minus 3. Okay. So negative 3 gives me 9. Negative 3 is x and 9 is y. So this line will come up over here. Negative 2 gives me negative 2 gives me 7. So this is negative 2. This is giving me 7 over here. Negative 1 gives me 5. So negative 1 will give me 5 over here. 0 gives me 3. 1 gives me 1. 2 gives me negative 1. And 3 gives me negative 3. So let's join these lines now. So these lines are exactly coming like this. Notice that now your gradient was negative 2, because of which we already know that if the gradient is negative 2, so it will be a downward sloping curve. So negative 2 gradient, downward sloping curve. We also knew that if this is c, or gradient is 3, or sorry, if your y-intercept is 3, which is c is 3, then your line will be crossing the y-axis. So over here it is crossing the y-axis, because of which this will be your equation of the line, correct? So I guess this makes sense. I will be giving you a couple of questions over here only. If, as always, if something does not make sense to you, please let me know, so we can come back to it and explain it a bit further, right? Alright, so now what you have to do, just a minute. What we have to do is, we have to do, as always, an assignment. You have to make lines of the following questions. Question number 1, y equals to 2x plus 1. y equals to negative 3x plus 6, y minus 3x equals to 1. Do not get confused, you have to use your algebra, do not forget that. Y equals to negative bracket 2x minus 2, 5, 1 over 3 y plus x equals to 1. And I'll give you one more, and this will be the challenging question that you need to do. 2x minus 3y plus 4 over 4 equals to 4. This will be the star question. Let's see how many of us are able to pull this off, right? In the next video, I will be explaining equation of the line only, but with the help of graphs. So we'll see how we use graphs and take out the equation of line for that. So stay tuned.